Round 4 gave us the biggest game of the season so far. Lived up to the hype, and we got probably the best performance so far this season as well. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. Some great performances this weekend, some very exciting games as well. As usual, we're just going to run down through, kind of the scores and stuff in the games. Not talk too much about them, although it's me, so it's not going to be short, right? And then have a look at the table. So, I'm going to start with the Friday night games, and the first game we're going to look at is Edinburgh 43, Benetton 0. So, Edinburgh, first win of the season for them. They'll be glad to get under their belt. And it was pretty routine, honestly. So, you got Van der Merwe and then Richardson in the first kind of 10 minutes or so. Darcy Graham in for the first of his 2 tries just before half time. Then coming up on 60 minutes, we have Richardson in for their bonus point try. We've also got around that time, actually before that first, Fekitoa and then our Garbisi both going to the bin. I think he was just after the try. Last 15 minutes then, they blow out the score. O'Connor, Bradbury, who's been brilliant this season so far, and then Graham in for his second. And Graham looking really lively as well out there. And it's good to see him. He had a bit of an injury problem there over the summer when he went off to the Lions and as injury cover and got injured himself. So good to see him back and firing there with a brace. But yeah, pretty easy 7 tries to 0 for Edinburgh, 43 points to Benetton's 0. So Benetton, it's been a feature of them this season. And I've talked about it's not just this season, it's basically the second half of last season where on the road, they're just not competitive. I don't know what happened to them. They built themselves up over the years, right? As, starting years and years back that both Italian teams, whether it's themselves and Aroni or Zebre, that, there were soft touches in the league, guaranteed, bonus point win, even with, making tons of changes. Then Benetton started getting more competitive. They, got to the point where they were knocking teams over at home now and again. Then it got to the point where teams had to send a stronger team over there. They couldn't make so many changes anymore if they were to get the win. And then they got to the point where they were very competitive at home, winning games at home, and then started winning away too. On the back of that, then, Rainbow Cup won that, and it felt like they were going to kick on further from there. And, apart from, you look at last year, they had, the wins over Bath and La Rochelle in the Champions Cup, but we haven't seen, kind of too many statement performances from them since then, and it's kind of that, again, that they were kind of in the, the pool stages of the Champions Cup. And then after that, then we didn't really see much from them. Kind of went out, they had that, not really a playoff, but it was just kind of head to head with Munster for a spot in the playoffs, and, went out with a whimper, honestly, in that one. And that's the way their performance have been away from home since. They've been doing well at home. Obviously, they beat Glasgow, but in this one, not able to kind of, produce anything away from home. So, bit of a worry for them, I think, on the road, but Edinburgh will be happy to get their first win on the board. So, on to the next, and then it is Connacht 27, Bulls 28. There's a full review of this on the channel if you want more kind of details, but, Connacht, they started well, applying pressure near the try line. They move the ball then, and Josh Shawani just glides between 2 defenders over to score. He does convert it, although his kicking from the tee wasn't brilliant. And that's kind of the thing with him, right? He's so good at running the back line and has that threat himself of a break, but then his kicking isn't the best. But then within a few minutes, Paul the vet, I think he was on de Klerk's shoulder, and just a nice trailing line, gets the pass, he's over to score. And we then have, shortly after that, Josh Murphy gets a 20-minute red card, and Connacht really struggle after that. I thought it was the red card was an interesting one, because there was an accusation against the Bulls player that it basically grabbed them in the nether region, but they couldn't find anything about that. Couldn't find an angle to see that, even though on the replays you can see a hand is going potentially where it shouldn't be, but you can't see it. And I said in the longer review as well that I kind of feel a bit of sympathy for the officials. If you can't see it, you can't punish it. But what they definitely could see was Josh Murphy smacking the guy in the face. And I think it was Vessels, right? And you can't get away with that. So he gets the 20-minute red. There was a kind of a thing though where Holly Davison was the TMO, and she said that it didn't seem like there was a lot of danger, and it seems like she was maybe talking, I think it was Adamson was the referee, right, trying to talk him towards a yellow card, but he says no, it's a 20-minute red. So Josh Murphy off for that period, obviously he can't come back on, but he gets replaced towards the end of the half. But from there, you got Willie LaRue finishing really well at wide. I've always talked about him. I think he's a Rolls Royce of a player, and he was on brilliant form in this game as well. And at that stage, then the Bulls kind of have their tails up, but I thought Connacht did well, because that kind of came straight after the 20-minute red. And then they did really well, not to concede any more points before the break. And, it was something I thought, sticking in the game, even though they had a man less for those 20 minutes. And obviously would have put a lot on their legs as well, having to defend with one less man for a quarter of the game. And then we're into the second half then, and, Bulls applying pressure. They've got penalty advantage, I think, and then Keegan Johannes drops a goal to stretch their lead out. And the vet then, I think, pretty sure, another trailing line from him on a break, and he's over to score their third try of the game. And it looks like, by that point then, that the Bulls have a nice cushion, and actually Keegan Johannes stretches that from the tee as well with about 15 minutes to go. And in the last 10 minutes then, we see a bit of a resurgence from Connacht. We got Sean Nocton did really well to get over for a try, young guy there with 10 minutes to go. And then we then have penalty swaps between himself, first Johannes and then him with penalties. But, Connacht are thereabouts, not too far behind. But coming into the final few minutes, that penalty was basically trying to keep them within, within potentially a losing bonus point, if they could get another score. And then Mac Hansen comes up with the score at the end with the try, and it's their bonus point try as well, which means that Connacht got 2 points out of the game, and probably what they deserved. I'm sure a lot of Connacht fans probably felt like maybe they were hard done by with some of the decisions, but I think a lot of them were kind of marginal. So you can see it going one way or the other, and generally they even out over the course of the season. And I felt like the Bulls were good value for the win. I thought they were probably the better team over the 80 minutes. And final score, Connacht 27, Vodacom Bulls 28. In that one, again, full review of it on the channel if you want to have a look at that, and we go into a bit more detail. On to the next game then. Dragons 17, Cardiff 24. So, Cardiff get perfect start. Alex Mann in within 2 minutes, but then Brody I think did they say Colin or Coughlin? I don't know how because like it's an Irish name, right? But I'm pretty sure that the Welsh pronounce it differently than us. But he's in for a try 5 minutes later. So like, Dragons showing a bit of fight in this that we haven't seen too much. Obviously they got that draw against the Sharks and they're looking better, at least at home, in terms of performances. Very still dire on the road, unfortunately. But then Tulipe Faletau in, for a try, and at the end of the first kind of quarter of the game, Dan Thomas in for Cardiff's third try of the game. So, at that stage, I feel like, okay, Cardiff in control. They should kind of, a lot of time against the Dragons, teams will then start to pull away. The Dragons just doing well not to let them kind of, blow the score out before half time. And then into the second half, you have, Danny Southworth, I think, with about 20 minutes to go, gets over for Cardiff's, their bonus point try. And then, Dragons again, just kind of keeping in there. About 10 minutes to go, Ben Carter in for their second try of the game. Tina Stabir converts that, and it means, they're 10 points behind. And right at the death then, Angus O'Brien slots a penalty to get Dragons a losing bonus point. So some better fight from Dragons, which is good to see. And then, Cardiff, I think one of the criticisms Cardiff got last year was that, early on the season, they were high up in the table. And a lot of people were saying, oh, that's only because they're playing against other Welsh teams. But I think, this Cardiff team has a little bit more about it, and just want to see them kind of develop a little bit more in terms of being able to put those performances back to back. We're not really seeing that from them, at the minute. Like they did beat, Connacht last time out, but again, it was a close game from them. So, I guess one bonus from them is they are kind of coming out on top in those close games, which if you look back kind of a couple of seasons ago, they were on the wrong side of a lot of kind of 1 point scores, or one score games, should I say. So, definitely developing there from Cardiff, but again, can they kind of kick on and really get themselves, up there at the pointy end for the whole season, not just for the start of the season? That's what remains to see. But Dragons 17, Cardiff 24 was the final score in that one. Okay, on to the next game, and that was Lions 29, Scarlets 18. So Lions a bit of a third time on their tour, up here in Europe. They get home and they get a first win of the season, and they'll be very happy with that. They're kind of made to wait for their first score of the game. 25 minutes. Kewan Horn, another player that I really kind of like to watch. Very, very just kind of balanced runner, and he's in for the first try of the game. And that was a response to, I think Sam Costello had a penalty on about kind of, what was it? Let me have a look here. 13 minutes. He got a penalty to put Scarlets in the lead, but then Kewan Horn, puts the Lions in the lead at the break, but like it's very close because conversions missed on that one. Into second half then, and both teams going to the tee because it's so close. So first of all, we have Chris Smith with a penalty for the Lions. Then Costello responds from the Scarlets, and then Gianni Lombard puts one over for the Lions just to keep that little bit of a lead for them. And then kind of the last kind of 20 minutes or just over of the game, we have a bit more action on the scoreboard. We have Marius in for the Lions getting a try. And then Scarlets, though, putting pressure on, they get a penalty try, and Landsberg goes to the bin. And at that stage, you're thinking, okay, well, it's on really for the Scarlets, but like that during that period, it's actually the Lions who stretched their lead. They got Brandon gets a couple of tries. The first try, he's kind of the trailing player and gets the pass to go over to score. And then the second one is more of a hooker score, goes off the back of a maul and forces his way over to get that bonus point try. So the final score, Lions 29, Scarlets 18. So a decent win for the Lions, bonus point win, first one on the board from them this season, and maybe they can build from here, because I always say they're kind of the forgotten South African team, and they've got to start performing to change that, I think. So good start for them in terms of just start the season now, but unfortunately it's the fourth round, so they've got a ways to go really to get themselves up that table. On to the next one then. It is Sharks 24, Ulster 34. So, I'm wearing the Ulster shirt in recognition of that. Obviously got the Munster one in the back there as well, and recognition of Munster's performance. I'd be wearing the Munster one as well, but I don't know what you can see from here, but Munster's last season, or I can't remember when I got that shirt actually. Was it last season or the season before? But the season that they had that shirt, they had these red, I don't know what you call it, stripes or something on the shirt. And you can see there, they're not on that shirt anymore because the glue, I've worn that shirt so many times, the glue on it kind of gave up and they start peeling off. So at the moment, like, it's over there, because if I was wearing it here, you'd see just big globs of glue up on my shoulder. So I got to find some way to get the glue off the thing now, because the stripes are gone. But I'll probably just get myself, I think I'll treat myself to another Munster shirt probably. The only thing about the Munster shirt really is, I think you still have to go to Lifestyle Sport, which is the Dunn Stores sports section or whatever, to get them. So I'll have to sort that out at some point. But that's the reason why I'm not wearing the Munster shirt, because otherwise I would. But Ulster, a brilliant performance from them. So Sharks, came up to Europe, had a pretty torrid time of it, only like that draw against the Dragons in the game. Again, I'm pretty sure anyone connected with the Sharks probably saw that and thought, okay, well, that's at least a win on the tour, and it didn't turn out to be that way. So I think getting home, they probably thought, okay, let's at least start with a win, the way the Lions did, first home game of the season, but it didn't happen for them. And, Ulster, I said at the end of last season, we want to see a bit of evolution, a bit of progression from Richie Murphy's team at Ulster, and we're seeing that now, and it really is kind of a very positive thing for them. But in this game, Mike Lowry, someone who kind of injury affected, really, hopefully we get to see him have a run of games this year, because he's one of those players himself. Like, there's a lot of actually backs at Ulster, you think, like himself, Rob Balakoon, and there's a few others there as well who are kind of, they have plenty of talent, but keeping them fit and on the pitch seems to be a bit of a worry for Ulster. So fingers crossed for him. But he's over for a try within 6 minutes. And then probably one of the best signings that Ulster have had in a long time, Werner Koch, gets over for a try against his old team as well. And when he was there at the Sharks, I thought he was a decent player for them as well. So good to see him there with Ulster. And Ulster have had kind of a bit of a torrid time really in terms of their overseas signings in the last few years. Signing big marquee players who've spent most of their time in Ulster injured, and it's kind of, a bit kind of disappointing for them, really. Like, I'm sure there have been players since, but for me, the overseas signing that really stands out as a brilliant contributor to Ulster was Ruan Pinar. I think that guy was absolutely brilliant, and obviously, they ended up, he left, and they kind of had a couple of players, like, couple of nines. The Doak, who was playing in this game, in kind of a similar mold to him as well. But Ruan Pinar was just absolutely brilliant. And I think it's no kind of surprise that, Ulster did well, for the most part while he was there too. I think Werner Koch, might be in a kind of a similar role, in terms of, not really, like, you look at like the likes of Vermeulen and stuff that they signed, doesn't have the profile of that, of a player like that, but, is a player I think that the Ulster fans really will take to, because he's a real kind of, nugget of a player, like short and stocky, but, fights for everything. And, even when the team is playing badly, he's still giving us all. There's no kind of head going down with him. So he's over for a try. And we've had, like, I think Doak has put over a penalty as well for Ulster. So they got themselves a bit of a lead. Then Sia Khaleesi, before the break, he gets over for a try for the Sharks, and expecting maybe the Sharks are going to really come back into it. But before the break, Doak pops over another penalty, kind of steady the ship a little bit for Ulster and just say, listen, it's not going to be an avalanche of the Sharks coming back at us. Into the second half then, Makazola Mapimpi over for a try for the Sharks. And again, you kind of get that feeling of, okay, well, are the Sharks going to come back over the top of them? But Ulster, the thing about winning away in South Africa is, yes, you have to be competitive in the second half, but you have to keep that scoreboard ticking. In the first half, you have to keep the scoreboard ticking in the second half. And he did that over for a try. With about 25 minutes to go, Tom Stewart converted again. Like Doak, really great off the tee, just adding those extra few points that were, crucial in the end for them. And then we have a 20-minute red card for Mapimpi as well. So he's off. We've also got Vincent Koch in the bin for the Sharks. You've got Tom O'Toole in the bin for Ulster. Like, it's a 10-minute period where you got 3 cards, and during that period, while those guys are off the field, you've got the bonus point try for Ulster, Callum Reid getting that, and you've also got Esther Hazen getting a try for the Sharks. And the Sharks then have around about 10 minutes to go to get themselves back. Potentially, it would have been a big one if they gotten back for the win. And also, should have said that they got a penalty try as well before that. So they've got 4 tries, right? And Ulster have 4 as well. But it felt like, they've got that 10 minutes. They should be able to at least get back within, the 7 points to make it a 2-point gain for them in terms of, bonus point try and losing bonus point. And potentially there was, the possibility of getting the win as well. But again, Mapimpi was off the field for most of that period. So, getting themselves a couple of tries, not bad, but just weren't able to really get themselves back within the 7. So final score, Sharks 26, Ulster 34. So great performance from Ulster there. And we're on to the next game, and this was the game of the weekend. As a Leinster fan, obviously, it's weird though, because I don't know whether people believe me, but I always say that, I'm a Leinster fan, but I'm also a rugby fan first and foremost. And, I think for a lot of Leinster fans, probably not an enjoyable game to watch. For me, it was an enjoyable game as long as I kind of parked my Leinster. It's hard to park your bias, but just looking at the performances of some of those Munster players, absolutely outstanding. Like Jack Crowley, Ty Byrne was out of this world. And then Coombs off the bench as well. And a lot of other players in there, like Tom Farrell in midfield, absolutely outstanding as well. And a lot of these Munster players overshadowing their Leinster counterparts, who the bulk of whom, got picked ahead of them for the Ireland squad for the autumn internationals as well. So that'll be, certainly would have been motivation for the Munster players. But, for this game as well, got a longer review up on the channel as well, where I go into more depth on stuff. So not going to go too much into it here, but Ronan Keller opens the scoring for Leinster. They're looking decent for the first kind of 15 minutes or so. And then Munster just take the game by the scruff of the neck. Brian Gleeson, who I believe is going as kind of injury cover for the game in Chicago. But again, I talked about it with the Ireland squad. Would have loved to see guys like him in the squad. Cause for me, I don't know, like, again, I'm not like a coach or anything, and I'm sure there's reasons why it shouldn't be. But for me, like players like him, I put them in against the All Blacks or the Box. And I do that now. And the reason for that is because it's, we go to World Cups and we get to the quarterfinal and we're against someone like New Zealand or the Box or whoever, right? And we've had a bit of an injury in the last pool game or something. And then someone like him then has to go in for the first game against, the first time for them playing against New Zealand or South Africa or wherever it is in a really big game. And, inevitably we lose. So for me, it's like, let's change the way we're doing things and put these guys in against those big teams now. But like not just make wholesale changes and say, right, we're going to put all the young guys in. No, just put them in with, in the back row, with some of the established players in there and let them bring that new energy into that team with those established players and force them to lift their game, because I've seen this young guy just smashing everything, running here, there and everywhere in training and just bringing a new energy to what feels like, Leinster and Ireland feel like a little bit of a tired kind of squad. But again, that's just my opinion. And I said I wasn't gonna spend too long on this, but yeah, I feel like those players should be in there though. He's over for a try though. Then Tom Farrell, with an absolute like worldy of a try. Munster attack off a line out. They go off the top. It's just outside the 22. Crowley, lovely kick, over the top of the defence. Farrell then in between two Leinster players, kind of just taps the ball on with one hand and then is able to gather it at full pace and go in under the post. Just absolutely brilliant. And he was amazing all night as well in that midfield. And I really like he's a great signing for Munster and just kind of gives him that extra dimension. Then, Leinster trying to get themselves back into the game, attacking into 22, but Munster been doing a great job of slowing the ball down, and Leinster become very kind of telegraphed in their attack. And Ethan Coughlin, young guy at 9, reads a pass, picks it off, and it just goes the length of the field to score under the posts. And from there, then Crowley, just some of the stuff he did in the game was amazing. You probably won't see most of it on highlights packages, but stepping out of danger and then putting in kicks with his left foot and that kind of stuff. Just absolutely sublime from him. Then we had second half, he lands a penalty just to stretch Munster out that little bit more. And towards the end, then we have, a couple of late tries in the game. Kind of penalty try for Munster, where I think Farrell was going for the corner, and he's tackled, and then Frawley comes in and as kind of the second tackler, and like it is weird, but I think it was adjudged to be a ruck after the first tackler. So when Frawley comes in, he's adjudged to come in from the side, and therefore it's a penalty. Because he's basically prevented a try being scored, he gets sent to the bin. But it was kind of a bit weird, because then you're thinking, well, if it's in the act of the try of scoring a try, is there then a ruck for him to be offside from? Because normally you think, well, it's in the act of scoring, then there isn't an offside line, as it were, for tackling. But it was a kind of a weird interpretation from that. But I said it in the longer one as well. Munster absolutely deserved to have a bonus point try in this game, whether it came from a penalty try or anything else. The performance absolutely warranted it, and I'm glad that they got it as well. So that was their bonus point. And then right at the end, then Gavin Coombs goes to the bin. I think, he was playing the 9 or something, as Leinster were going for a consolation try, and finally Scott Penny gets over, but, no losing bonus point or anything like that for Leinster, and the performance absolutely didn't deserve it, honestly. And Munster just far the better team in that game, and Leinster now really do have to have a look at, their strategy, because like the guys in commentary were talking about, like the Leinster players are only coming back in now, and maybe that's why a little bit ring rust for them and not quite up to the pace. But we're 4 games into the season. Yes, the guys who were away with the Lions given a bit of extra time off, and I'm sure because they're on central contracts that there is some kind of rules about how many games the players can play, etc. But they had the fixture list, and they could have planned it to not be making so many changes coming into this game. But that's the way they did it. So I'm a Leinster fan. I've no sympathy for them, honestly, on that. But final score: Leinster 14, Munster 31. As I said, I talk a lot more about it on the longer one, so you can have a look at that on the channel. Okay, on to the next game here then. So Zebre 13, Stormers 31, and Zebre, they kind of a good start to the season, and I said, like, Stormers though have had an excellent start to the season, and I felt like Zebre, they could be competitive at home against most teams, but I felt the Stormers probably will have a bit too much to them, and that's how it turned out. So de Villiers over like in the first 10 minutes for a try for Stormers. Then Bologna scores a try for Zebre, and that's converted. So Zebre actually winning at that point, and they're winning coming up to half time. And you're thinking, okay, they're doing well if they can get in at half time leading, and then the second half, then again keep that scoreboard ticking over. Who knows what can happen? Could be another famous win for them. But Feinberg and Gamazulu is absolutely on fire so far this season. He gets in for a try just before half time. Then in the second half, just after half time, gets himself a second try of the game, and now the Stormers are kind of in charge. Then Warrant Hallant over for their bonus point try, but about 20 minutes to go. Sarah goes to the bin at the same time. During that period, then Zebre get a couple of penalties from DeRay, trying to just keep in touch, just in case they can maybe get themselves a try and for the losing bonus point to be on the cards for them. But it's actually Ruan Nell has the final save of the game. He goes over for a try for the Stormers right at the death. So finished Zebre Parma 13 and DHL Stormers 31. Okay, on to the final game of the weekend, and that was Ospreys 17, Glasgow 42. So, Ospreys, they've, again, another kind of mixed start to the season, really, from them. Very competitive away from home, down in South Africa, looking good, scored 40 points against the Bulls. Obviously, though, conceded 53 as well, but then looked good in that defeat to the Stormers as well, 26-10. I think they were maybe leading that game at one point, and the Stormers, had it, and then looked really good in that win last week at home against Zebre. But then, in this one, just not enough fight from them, really. Like, competitive in the first half, but then second half, Glasgow just pulled away. So got Jamie Dobie over for an early try for Glasgow. Then a few minutes later, Ruben Morgan Williams in for the Ospreys. But, Glasgow kind of did that thing of like switch off, and a few minutes later conceded a try. Ospreys returned a favour. They switch off, and then Kyle Stain is in for second try for Glasgow. But then we have a penalty from Dan Edwards. For Ospreys, you're thinking, okay, well, at least keep in touch like that, and you've got every chance to hit back. But then Dowie Lake goes to the bin. Ospreys, though, do really well to, not concede any points during that yellow card period. He gets back on the pitch, and you're thinking, okay, get in at halftime now, reset, and then come back at Glasgow in the second half. But clock in the red, Johnny Matthews over for a try for Glasgow, and suddenly, it puts a very different complexion on half time. Second half, though, Ospreys do come out firing a bit. Luke Morgan in for their second try, but then that's it. That's like the scoring basically done. Like Dan Edwards adds the conversion, but they're done scoring wise then. And last 30 minutes, then Glasgow just pull away. Jamie Dobie with a second try, and then Ewan Ferry with 20 minutes to go. And then in the last kind of 5 or 10 minutes, Mackenzie Duncan in for their sixth try of the game. So very good bonus point away win for Glasgow there. Ospreys 17, Glasgow Warriors 42 was the final score. Okay, so let's have a look at the table, and then we'll end the video. So top of the table at the moment, you have the Stormers, who've been very impressive. Not just like we saw kind of the first few rounds, themselves and the Bulls, they actually both beat Leinster and Ospreys at home, and both looking good. But the thing that really stood out for the Stormers, and the thing that stood out again, last week and this week, is their defense. Like, they've only conceded 23 points so far this season. And so they're scoring the tries, and they're doing all that, but rock solid defense as well. And, it really feels like Stormers are back this season, because last year they really, kind of fell away from the standards that we're used to from them. But they're top of the table with 19 points. Then Munster on the back of that amazing win against Leinster. They're right with them in second place. 4 wins out of 4 from them as well. 19 points from them. Their games have been obviously a bit closer than the Stormers games for the most part. So it's, points difference that they're behind on, but still excellent start from Munster to the season. Can't ask for any more from them. Glasgow then in third place. So, one blip, that away defeat to Benetton, but they got 3 wins out of the 4 games, and they're, in there in third place with 16 points. Then Cardiff, similar to last season, really up near the top. And I talked about it when we talked about the game, 3 wins out of 4 on 16 points, but it's about, can they keep it going for the rest of the season? Have they learned the lessons from last season to be able to do that? So far, so good for them, though. So got to give them credit for that. And, it is like there's some really good, young, exciting players in that squad. And you really want to see them kick on. I've talked about before, that I don't want to see any of their countries in the URC doing badly. And it's kind of, obviously, not everyone can do well. Like, for every team that's doing well, there's a team that's doing badly. But what we want to see more Welsh teams being competitive in the league, and it's great to see Cardiff up there at the minute. Then Ulster, really coming on this season, 3 wins out of 3. Obviously had that game against Edinburgh called off because of the weather, but maximum points from the 3 games, 15. So they're doing really well as well. Then the Bulls, 3 wins for them as well this season, but it's 3 out of 4, and they're there in on 14 points in 6th place. But they've got like just that narrow win against Connacht, and then they had the defeat the week before that as well. So they'd hope to maybe add another win before we have the break for November, just to kind of solidify their position up there and not fall kind of into that kind of middle melee of teams that are below them at the minute. Then 7th place, we have Benetton, 2 wins from 2, and home doing really well, away not so much, and pretty much the same as Zebre. Although Zebre, I think, have had three home games, I think. So they're 2 out of 2 as well. On the back of that defeat to the Stormers there at the weekend. But it's good to see Zebre up there. Last year they got themselves not too far away from the like they finished 15th, but not too far away from Ulster from 14th by the end of the season. And I think their ambition this year would be basically to try and finish in the pack rather than a little bit adrift towards the end of the table. 9th place, then you got Edinburgh, first win of the season for them on 8 points. 10th is Connacht. They started out with with that win against Benetton in the first round, but it's been 2 defeats so far. Obviously had the game against the Scarlets called off as well, so they've got 1 game to make up, but they're on 8 points there in 10th. Then the Lions, first win this season for them, moves them to 11th place, 1 win from 4 games. Really didn't enjoy the tour up here in Europe, and hoping to kind of start the season really for them with home wins. So they've got 1, they'll want another one in round 5 as well. Leinster then, 1 win from 3 from them, 2, and absolutely where they deserve to be, honestly. They went down to South Africa, got nilled in the first game, much more competitive against the Bulls in the second game, leading as well, but couldn't bring it home, didn't have the wherewithal for it. Then they get themselves a win on the board, back at home, and probably thinking, okay, we steady the ship a little bit, bring back all of their, most of their big players for the game against Munster, and get absolutely rocked in that game. And yeah, I think where they deserve to be down at 12th at the minute with 6 points, probably will climb the table. You would expect them to win the next game and climb the table a little bit before the break, but plenty of work for them to do. And I've talked about it before, with Leinster, is that it's part of the problem, I think, with this Leinster team, is that they get back to winning ways, and then they don't learn the lessons of the game that they actually lost, because teams use the pretty much the same methodology to beat them, and they look clueless every time. So probably will get back to winning ways and climb the table. Though Ospreys then in 13th place, they've got that one win so far this season as well, on 5 points. Then we're into the winless teams. So the Sharks in 14th, one draw away to the Dragons so far, 3 losses, got 3 points. They're in that kind of position where they were a couple of seasons ago, where they decided that they were going to focus on Europe, and they won the Challenge Cup, but finished I think down in 13th or 14th in the league. So, you wonder at this early stage in the season, are they going to do something similar? We'll have to wait and see on that. I think Dragons then in 15th place, just trying to desperately to stay away from that bottom of the table. They got themselves 2 points in that draw against the Sharks, got themselves another point against Cardiff as well there this weekend. So they're on 3 points at 15th. And then Scarlets, the team, adrift at the moment down there. Well, not really adrift, because they win a game and they could move up a bit, but they're on 0 points. So that must feel like they're adrift, even that they are one win away from potentially moving up a couple of places. But, surprising team really for me this year, because last year, I saw it 2 seasons ago towards the end of the season, that Dwayne Peel was starting to put something together really there to Scarlets, where you could see they were being more competitive in games. And then last year, then we saw that from them as they developed through the season, and they were winning a lot of close games, or just staying in and picking up points here and there. And it got them to, I think it was a 7th place finish. They finished in the playoffs, at least, whether it was 7th or 8th. I think it might have been 8th that they finished, but really good finish to the season from them to be able to make the playoffs. But this year, it's kind of similar to Ospreys really at the start of last season, where Ospreys miracle run with those 2 games, got into the playoffs, and then started last season very poorly. And Scarlets are kind of on the same thing, where they haven't really built on last season at all, and have gone backwards a little bit. So hopefully they can kind of get themselves together and, start being a bit more competitive. Because again, yes, somebody has to be bottom of the table, but you want the team who are bottom of the table to still be competitive and not be kind of, winless. Hopefully not for too much longer for them, that they can kind of get something on the board for them. But that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Just want to say thanks to everyone who's been commenting recently, and to those who have been with me from the start of the channel as well. I really appreciate that people actually take the time to listen to me waffle on about rugby. It's a passion of mine. Some of you guys have been with me from the start as well. Got some new people on recently too, so welcome to the channel. We're going to have more stuff like this, so if you like someone that waffles on about rugby, I guess this is the place for you. But let me know what you think down in the comments.